Welcome, everybody. I believe this is our sixth forum, right? Since we started. Welcome to our Matricalis online forum where we have nice, fun, easygoing, realistic conversation with other musicians who also happen to be moms, parents of little ones, and just talking about that whole life that we live. So we have a few special guests with us today. Alicia Hall Moran, the wonderful Alicia Hall Moran, dear friend of mine, mezzo soprano, singer extraordinaire, composer, can fluently navigate the worlds of jazz, classical, Broadway, you name it. She's that girl. We love her, and also a beautiful mom to twins, twin teenage boys. How old are your sons again? 10 plus 5. 15 teenage boys. Love it. And we also have Sara Serpa, who is another vocalist, jazz vocalist, right? Composer, super versatile, and of course also mother. And Sarah, tell me, I don't know about your children. Can you tell us about your
I
family?
just have one boy. He's 8.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Mhm.
awesome. So we have an 8-year-old boy. And then we also have our other co-founders here, Elise with Blue N. She's got the baby. She has another one, a little toddler also running around back there. Zasha. And we have another surprise special guest, Nina Young, who is a composer and a new mother, right? So we have a lot of different perspectives today with us, which is really exciting. I was just, before we went live, I was just talking to Alicia about, just catching up and feeling very overwhelmed this time of year. I don't know what it is, but I don't know about you guys, but the fall, I'm very excited for it, but I'm also like so overwhelmed because it's not only like the start of all the work and the concerts. I mean, this past month in October, I feel like everybody had a show and everybody was working, which was great, but it's like a lot, there's a lot going on. But then like with the kids and like back to school and Halloween and PTAs and this, that, and the other, it's just like it just feels like everything is just happening in all these different directions. Um, on top of just, getting basic things done like sleep and eating. So we were just talking about that, but I would love to just maybe talk more about how everyone is doing in this time and the top of the school, well, I guess we're at the top, but beginning of the school year for those of us with school age children, and with the management of all the schedules in the life and the concertizing and all these things. I feel like I'm making it, but I don't know, I feel like I'm like right at the edge. How are you guys feeling? And feel free to jump in whenever.
Can you remind us what grades your children just entered, Allison?
Yes, so my son is an eighth grader and he just turned 13, which is an interesting time. And my daughter is in second grade and she's 7. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's fun, but it's a lot.
You have like a foot in two major worlds.
Hmm.
My mom, Carol, used to always remind me more about things like, maybe the texture of my hair or complexion issues or something. She would say, well, that all the cells in the body renew themselves about every 7 years. So if you don't like this 7 years, maybe you'll get another 7 years. Your hair will get shinier 7 years from now, or your joints will get creamier and stuff, whatever. So I think like in terms of that, you're always gonna have this cyclical, like 7 years of life in both these kids, in addition to your own cycles.
Hmm.
So I have a lot of mythological empathy for you. That's a lot. It's monumental.
Thank you. It's interesting that you put it that way. I didn't think about that. And I've heard about this 7-year like cell regeneration cycle that, we all have. Ooh, we have a new guest. Um, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually when you put it that way. And I also feel like personally, with myself, kind of being middle aged now, I feel like there's so many chapters that are closing and new chapters that are beginning, all, also, which is very exciting and bittersweet in a way, but it's just a lot. There's just like a lot of different emotions and, you know, energies to kind of like balance. But yeah, that's a good point. This is an interesting time. Sarah, so your son is 8?
8. He just started third grade. So first of all, I just want to say it's really great to be around mothers. Like I often feel like the only element that has this thing going on in their lives among my peers. Like so. It's very, sometimes I'll talk about things, but it's not like people really understand what's going on. When you say I can't make it because I have to wake up at 6:30 because I have to drop my son at school, so I can't. So these little things that make the routine of motherhood like very. I feel sometimes I'm surrounded by people that don't really experience it. So to be among people that I can just share, and actually that are musicians, because I do have groups of moms that we are all in the same world, but we're not, because they do things completely different. So to actually have musicians and moms, like, it's great. So thank you for the invitation. I feel like lately the biggest struggle is really routines for me, because I have to fulfill all these routines of dropping kid, picking up after school, and then in the middle find time for myself and for my creative practice, and in the middle of everything else that is daily comes on emails and stuff that I have to deal with. So I feel like lately I've been just kind of craving for unstructured moments where I don't have to do anything, that I don't have to fulfill any schedule. But it's not going to happen until mid-December, so it's like, okay, I have this long thing that I have to manage my time, manage my energy, manage my enthusiasm also. and like I do prioritize sleeping, for example. That's one of the things, like if I'm exhausted, I will go to sleep. It's one of the things that I think like I can't really function, and sometimes I go to sleep. I've become like someone who goes to sleep really early. But yeah, I just feel like I'm craving for unstructured moments so that I could just sing, and like I have all this stuff, like for example I'm composing new music, but then I only have 1 hour, and then 1 hour is gone, and I'm like, how am I going to finish this? Like I need silence, I need no one bothering me, no one interrupting me, and that's only going to happen in 5 days. So it's just kind of, then you just start like, oh.
I sympathize with that so much. I think we all kind of do. The structure is it's like well, I don't want to say a necessary evil, but what's the word I'm trying to say? It's like it can be a beautiful thing, but it can also be like a very like, ugh, I'm getting antsy, like, so there's a lot of kind of conflicting, I think, emotions with that. But then also I think about like with when my kids were little, and just like how important that structure was to get anything done, and then have to learn how to like make the most out of an hour, or figure out how to, work in these like kind of brief chunks, like put something down and like come back to it, which is not how I worked before children at all. You could just sit there for like hours and, it's fine. Like, yeah, so it's definitely an adjustment for sure. Speaking of routine and structure, so Alicia, I've never talked to you like deeply about this, but I'm so curious to know. You're the first mom we've had who has twins on our forums here. And I always like marvel at women who have multiples. First of all, when I see them walking around pregnant, I'm like, oh my God, that woman is an angel. Um, So it starts there. But I'm just so curious for you in terms of like structure and routine and having like, these simul babies your entire life. Like what was that just experience just like, the adjustment, I guess we could say? Um, and what worked for you, if there's any other mothers who are watching who, are expecting twins or have multiples of their own. Any words of advice or
Well, I'm setting my timer on my phone so that I
okay.
give this answer a minute and a half. Because obviously, I would talk, I would never stop talking.
Right.
Bam. So, the first thing that happens is I have in my mind, I'm going to be a working mom. I'm pregnant. Yay. We waited for this so long. It's here. And then here's how it's going to look. Me and my husband, we're going to go to restaurants and I'm going to have this little baby in a little cute little bag on my chest. And then we're going to walk through the park. We're going to hold hands. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to have the baby and stroke it with I'm going to do, and it's like, no, none of that is happening. If you have one baby, none of that is happening. You don't have two hands anymore. You have no hands. But with twins, you I can't even express to you how much all my life changed and my concept of what a dream should be, or the privilege of having a dream, and forecasting the imagery of myself, how much it broke that, and it broke my body, and they didn't come on time, so they came 3 months early. And then you realize you're lucky to be a person leaving the hospital with a person, because when you get in these NICU situations, you see, got 20 seconds, people who don't leave with a baby, they are the saddest outcome. So if you have to wait 3 months and you get to leave with a person, you're grateful. So I would say overall, it taught me gratitude, change dream, redirect. And I mean, when I wake up, my dreams change. Today I dream of this, ma'am. Dream of walking around with not a booger in your nose that nobody tells you about and something stuck to your pants. And then that's for the little babies. But now that they're grown, oh, it's so easy because I did everything only once and I get two. It's so easy, I have to say, and very expensive. That's my wrap right now. That's what I got.
I love it. Thank you. Very expensive. Yes, children, they cost some money. They do. So Sarah, I was reading about you. I understand you're from Portugal, right?
Yes, I'm from Lisbon.
Oh, okay. Did you have your child after coming to the United States or?
Yes, so my baby was born at the Harlem hospital. Like I was really determined to, kind of like, this is where I am, this is where I'm located, I'm going to have my baby here. So I experienced everything. It was very, very kind of informative, has a social and personal experience. First of all, like experience all these prenatal care in a language that it's not mine, and how to advocate myself in a setting that it's completely foreigner to me, like in terms of health insurance, understanding my rights, like many times, I was not treated with the distance I thought I deserved, but because I was in such a new state, like in a vulnerable situation, sometimes it was challenging. But, everything went well. I think, like, when I think about those times, sometimes I think more about the solitude and the loneliness of that experience, not having family around,
Mhm.
like, and the family would just come for a period of time. So they would come for a week or 2 weeks. And, and when you have people coming to visit, like there's a whole adjustment for them to this reality. And then like, plus there's a baby, a new baby, and there's all this new stuff that you're dealing with. So yeah, so I think for me, like there was a lot of solitude, loneliness, like feeling like I don't know anyone who has a baby at this moment, like experiencing everything, even from, for example, breastfeeding. Like everybody was like, oh, you start breastfeeding right away, it's magical. It was not magical for me at all. It took me 3 weeks. It was painful, so all these things that then I also like Alicia, like I thought, yeah, we're gonna carry the baby, then I'm gonna tour, bring him with me. And we tried that twice, and I was like, I'm not doing this again. uh, um, and then even like, for example, I wanted to meet people, but then all the schedules are different. Like I have when you have a newborn or like a baby, like there's nap time. Like how can you have a session or rehearsal with someone? And now, like, I feel some of my collaborators are more like they can meet me at 10 a.m. and it's fine, but a lot of people are like, oh no, that's too early for me. I'm so but at the same time, so there was this loneliness, but at the same time prioritizing like what was important, so kind of understanding the time I have for myself really has to be to dedicate to projects, to my music. If I want to remain active, this is how I want to use my time. So there were great things that came from this, starting to understand, like I can't do every gig, that I have to kind of see, does this pay me enough? Is this rewarding enough for me to leave my baby and come, do this work, practice, spend time practicing the music? Or so I was able to say no to more things that sometimes weren't that interesting, but I thought I would do it for the sake of my career. And also that allowed me just to kind of also focus a little bit on myself. What do I want to create in music? Well, a lot of stuff that I just said. Also, I didn't have my timer, but Alicia, that's great.
Okay. That's okay. It's interesting that there's a few things you hit on that I think, many things you hit on that we could probably spend like hours and hours talking about. But this concept of learning to say like no to gigs, I find is a really interesting one, because even to this day, I still have to like convince myself not to do a thing, because for so long, I just said yes to so many things, right? Or I just figured out how to make it work. Especially early on in my career, I felt very much like I couldn't say no to anything, just in order to get out there and to get established. And it's taken a lot of discipline for me to learn that it's okay, but also not to like beat myself up about it, if it's something that you just have to say no to, either because you just don't have the time, or you need to balance, some things out. So I'm just curious to know, and anybody, please feel free to speak up about your own experience with, if you have or not, accepting this concept of saying no. I think all of us, especially as women in particular, we're very much like groomed to like make things work and figure out how to make it work, and like do this for somebody else, and do all the things, be like a superwoman, which is like unrealistic, right? And we can be hard on ourselves when we can't do all the things. So I'm just curious to know what all of you, like your own personal experience with this concept of saying no, and what that was like for you.
I'll jump in for one moment, because I'm right at that cusp with my baby having just turned 1. She's 13 months. Of, when I sit down with my therapist on Mondays, I'm like, this is the year of me, and I'm same as you when you said, Sarah, managing my enthusiasm, that's like really a huge issue for me. But the other side of this, like learning to say no for your own worth, is already its own challenge, I think, and probably a lifelong task. But then the expectation, and this has been a fear of mine since before I even got pregnant, that once a woman has children, that's her main priority, and that they're not really going to be available anymore probably shouldn't hire them as much, or won't really think of them as much. And I don't know, but I'm kind of feeling that this year. I don't know if it's because of the motherhood thing, if it's because I was pregnant also during this COVID time, if it's also just a coincidence of like there aren't that many gigs happening, or why it is, but I'm really feeling overpassed for things, and I don't know. It's really hard. It's really hard to feel that and say like, but I didn't say no. Somebody else is saying no. I don't know. I would love some like talk around that. Maybe I'm the only one experiencing that.
Yeah.
Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, I just wanted to interject. It's so nice to meet you all, to see you all, and the conversation is fantastic. I wanted to say, Alice, for what it's worth, Matricalis consumes a slightly different space. I'm in the jazz space, and I do have something that focuses on mothers in jazz. And I just wanted to say the number of times that comes up, that women, female jazz musicians, female musicians, didn't tell people that they were pregnant because they were worried about losing out on work. I think Sara, actually, you might have said it. Another violinist in Brooklyn, Tomoko, also said it keeps coming up. And I think I'll write it in, Alice, but I think that as someone who's just had a baby, that was my big fear. My fear was not NICU, carrying to full term, carrying past first trimester. It's ridiculous. The sheer physical undertaking of having a baby, and the fact that women used to die during childbirth, and they still do in many countries, it's absolutely bloody terrifying. But yet my first thought was like, oh, fuck, I still have ambitions and goals. And if people know, and I'm not where I want to be, and if people know that I have a baby, they definitely won't want to, they'll definitely discount me. And while I was pregnant, there were other women in our community who were also in our industry who were pregnant, but who were much further along and much more established in their career. And I felt, I felt like it's a luxury to be able to publicize that you are a working musician who's expecting a baby. But at the same time, a lot of people would say, oh, that's bullshit. But then I would say, but how can you count for unconscious bias? Some of it is totally conscious, but there would be a lot of people, and perhaps men or other women who, have come from a different place in a different space, and that's all fine, who would say, I would never not give a woman work because she's a mother, or I would never not reach out to collaborate. And saying it, but, again, if it's unconscious, and I think very often it is, you're not going to cop to it and admit to it. So, for what it's worth, Alice, that's it. That is just so commonplace, even now. And I maintain that a lot of people have unconscious bias, and it factors in. And I think one has to be careful, which is a shitty thing to say, because it's like, your mothers, that's amazing. But yeah.
I've been like so public about my entire experience, and I really feel strongly about doing that. I've felt very strongly about doing that since getting pregnant. Also, just because, we're not the last ones to have babies. They're coming up behind us, and their experience should be better, even better than ours. So for me, that's like a really huge part of having all of this going on, being able to talk, put this on the internet, hopefully. I would love to see some men come to these meetings at some point. But just listening to us, but that may happen eventually. And I guess what's difficult is I also give that advice, like, it's all going to be fine. We're out there. You're wonderful. And it's really hard to not have it really impact your own self-worth. Particularly after some years of, you're just in your home, in this routine, cooking meals, doing pickups, your artistic worth hasn't been rewarded in the way, I think as performers, we all kind of feed on that. And plus the pandemic, it's like another added layer of peanut butter. Yeah, anyway, I don't want to take up any more of this because I also didn't have my timer.
Yeah.
Y'all.
Alicia, now we're gonna all have our be self-conscious about our timers now. Well, I have to say, yeah, Nikki, I mean, that's this whole issue subject has is something that was a big motivating factor in forming this group, because I think we all have some kind of have serious empathy for, you know, how you're feeling, Elise. And I even remember when I was pregnant, you know, before the baby was even here, I had men and women both approach me and just be like, "Oh, so you're not doing music anymore?" You know, just like immediately. And it's like, who said that? I'm just having a baby, you know? Now mind, I was young when I had my first child, so maybe I was a little bit naive, but it was so interesting because I never really thought that that would be an issue at all. Like I never thought twice about it's, you know, the baby or music. You know, I was just like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. My husband and I will figure it out. But there were so many other people who had different ideas on that. So I think it's, and that was my son's 13 now, so that was 13 years ago. But I still think it's very much like you said, you know, kind of unconscious bias that is just there, and I'm not sure, you know, how best to eradicate that, but it's good that we have this space, I think, so we could at least address it, talk about it, and share space, you know, with each other, because it's a very real thing.